You are listening to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast. On this podcast, my guests share their stories of alcoholism, addiction, and how they recovered so that you can too. My hope is that you find the inspiration and resources you need to let go of what's holding you back so that you can transform into the person you were always meant to be. Ready? Here we go. Thank you for downloading the episode. If you're new here, my name is Arlina and I'll be your host. And if you're a longtime listener, welcome back. At the time of this recording, which is April 23rd of 24, I am celebrating 30 years of a continuous sobriety. It feels a little surreal, to be honest, but mostly I feel deeply grateful. Grateful that I was able to stay sober with the help of so many people. Grateful for my relentless curiosity about all things self-help and personal development and all of the experiences that I've had as a sober woman. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Typically, I interview guests about the recovery journey and ask them to share their solutions that help them get sober. But today, I wanted to share some of the things that will help people just starting out, some solutions for people who are focused on staying sober, and some of the practices that I use today to address my own mental health. As a disclaimer, if you are physically addicted to any substance, please consult with a medical professional. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on the internet. This is for educational purposes, and it's based on my own personal experiences. So with that out of the way, first, for those who are thinking about quitting drinking, I'd like to cover some basics that will help you get started. I actually have a free guide on my website called How to Quit Drinking, 30 Tips for Your First 30 Days. You can download it for free at soberlifeschool.com, but I'll go into a little more detail here if you are in the contemplation stage. I think the first step involves coming to the conclusion if you can moderate or not, like being 100% brutally honest with yourself. You don't even have to tell anyone yet, but that is the question that you have to answer for yourself. Can I moderate my drinking? And what I mean by moderation is, can you create a drinking plan and stick to it? If you decide you want to drink no more than like 2 glasses in the evening and you fail, that is a sign that you cannot moderate. But what about if you can do it some of the time? I would say that if you cannot stick to it 100% of the time, you cannot moderate. I know that sounds harsh, but it's really true. Especially if you experience things like blackouts, vomiting, interrupted sleep, like waking up at 3 a.m., hangovers, and if you do or say things under the influence that create problems in relationships, at work, in your finances, maybe even legal problems, those are all signs that you cannot moderate. If you are not sure, I suggest that you run the experiment. Give yourself a plan, a time frame, and then give it a shot, because you need to know to the depths of your being that you cannot moderate if you're going to practice abstinence. So if you feel like you have enough evidence, like you just look into your past and you're like, yep, can't moderate, then it's time to move to the next phase, which is getting prepared. I recommend you start by preparing your environment. Take out all the temptation. I don't care if you pour your booze down the drain, if you give it away, put it in the trash, just get it out of your house. After you do that, it's time to let people know. Keep in mind that people receive information with the same intensity and energy that you deliver it. So depending on who you tell, you can keep it light by saying something like, hey, I'm focusing on my health right now and creating better habits. So I'm going to go alcohol free for 30 days and I could use your support. Or there might be people close to you who you feel safe with, safe to say, hey, I don't think I should drink anymore, and I could really use your support. The point is to let people know so that you don't walk into a situation with friends or family who expect you to drink and then try to have that conversation then. It's better to give people a heads up so it's not awkward in the moment. And the point of telling somebody is it makes it real. You do need recovery allies, so let somebody know. As a side note, you might want to think about what specific support you want from these people. You're asking for support. It's good to be specific about what kind of support you're asking for. It could be asking someone not to offer you a drink, or it could be asking them not to drink in front of you. It could be that you ask someone not to lecture you or tease you about it in front of others. It could be that you have a friend that can run interference for you in social or work situations. Like if someone offers you a drink or tries to pressure you into drinking, they can kind of step in, maybe pull you away or interrupt and interject into the conversation to get the focus off of you and off of you not drinking. After you clean up your environment and you get a recovery ally, let somebody know, it's time to set a date. There will never be a perfect time, but I encourage you to trust your instincts and decide on a date that works for you. It could be a Monday, it could be a Saturday when you're like, I'm going to keep myself super busy all day, Saturday and Sunday. And it doesn't matter. I would say, trust your instincts, decide what works for you, and set a date. Once you've picked a date, then I would start thinking about what you will need to do to replace the drinking. Make a list of things that you can do to relax or to have fun. Maybe you want to get crafty, go hang out with friends. I don't know, go to a comedy show. Things to give yourself as a treat at the end of the day, whether it's like something delicious to eat, whether it's a hot bath, whether it's spending time in nature, things to de-stress, especially at the end of the day. Like if you want to go do an exercise class or whatever, the thing is, if you don't know what you can do ahead of time instead, then the temptation to drink can be too strong to resist. So decide, make a list of all the activities that you can do to replace the time you spent drinking. One thing to note, you can expect to feel a little bored or a little empty at first. This is normal and it won't last. Keep in mind that your brain is actually healing from being overloaded with dopamine. It needs a little time to heal. So don't panic into thinking this is how you're going to feel forever. It won't be. Also, I highly recommend starting a morning self-care practice. I like to use the 5-minute journal myself because it incorporates, three things that you're grateful for. So you're starting a gratitude practice, starting to connect to your heart, like what makes you happy, that is your compass. It involves setting your intention for the day, like three things that would make the day great. So you kind of have a target that you know that you're shooting for, and a positive affirmation for inspiration. It actually comes with like a little quote at the top for inspiration as well, but something to sort of set your mind in the direction that you want to go. Exercise is huge during this time because it's a great way to reset your neural transmitter circuit that will help you deal with stress. It'll help you feel better and give you more of an internal reserve to resist temptation. So, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you'll know I'm a huge fan of support groups. I have a private women's group on Facebook that you can join if you're a woman. There are all kinds of 12-step groups you can join. You can join anonymously online to start if you're curious, or you can just go in person. There are also tons of sober Facebook groups online too. There are other programs that are not 12-step oriented. There is Smart Recovery, Refuge Recovery, Dharma Recovery, She Recovers. Gosh, there are so many out there. It's hard to think of them all. But the point is to get involved in a support group of some kind. There's just so much available. And the point of these groups is to connect with others who are going through the same challenges and feelings that you are too. It's an opportunity for you to share your feelings, to offer support to others so that you start building connections. They say that alcoholism addiction is a disease of isolation and connection is the cure. And they can really make a big difference in helping you get through hard times. So find some support. The next thing I want to share are solutions for those that are focused on staying sober. Outside of support groups, which are peer based, I highly recommend professional help. I want to cover some of the treatment modalities that are available because there are actually so many. I don't think a lot of people know just how many there are. And these different treatments can offer different results depending on what you personally are dealing with. There are so many facets to this, and everybody is different. So I'm just going to throw out some resources as a reference that I have personally tried over the years. So let's start with the basics. I would highly recommend that you find someone who specializes in substance use disorders, or they might be listed as a provider who is an addiction specialist. I think it's important to find someone who understands all of the nuances that you'll be facing. These people can practice different modalities such as CBT, which stands for cognitive behavioral therapy, or DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. These are therapies which, generally speaking, are considered to be talk therapy. There are a couple of forms of trauma therapy you might want to consider depending on your experience. EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's a mouthful. It helps to heal the underlying causes of addiction by reframing past traumatic experiences that are hard to metabolize. Sometimes these traumatic experiences that we have in our past sort of get frozen in our subconscious mind. They're never really gone, but they're with you. They're in your subconscious mind, and we find ourselves reacting inappropriately in certain situations. Sometimes you might find yourself like overreacting and you're like, what is that about? If your response is disproportionate to the situation, that is a sign that you have some trauma work that needs to be done. So the EMDR really helps you to metabolize those experiences, process those feelings to resolution so they don't haunt you and that leave you with these negative feelings about you as a person, right? So EMDR is super helpful. I did it myself. I found it to be super helpful. IFS is internal family systems, which is also amazing at addressing the root cause. You can think of it as doing parts work in the sense that you have parts within you that drive your behavior. So this is a way to heal like inner child stuff, to calm your protective parts that may be showing up as self-sabotaging behaviors, and strengthen your higher self so that you can be more intentional about creating the life you want instead of being reactive and causing negative outcomes. Of course, as a certified hypnotist, I have to recommend hypnosis for a variety of issues, such as developing self esteem, connecting to your internal self worth, releasing subconscious limiting beliefs. And if you are in long term sobriety, struggling with what some programs call character defects, this is a drug-free process to reprogram your subconscious mind, connect so that you can connect with character assets. It's especially helpful for people in sobriety who need drug-free pain management. It's also super effective for that. I mean, I could literally do a whole episode on the benefits of just hypnosis. There are actually a ton of really good videos on YouTube if you want to try it out at home, but I have to say, nothing beats a personalized session. So, listen, there is so much to recovery. This is just a very brief overview of some tips. Don't forget, there's the free guide that you can get on the website. But I hope this gives you some ideas to think about and some resources to try. This is obviously not an exhaustive list of things you can try to quit drinking or to stay stopped, but it should give you some direction on what to do next. I realize this is a lot of information to absorb, so if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, just know you are not alone. If you want to talk through some of this stuff and come up with a plan, you can actually book a free strategy call with me. There is really no obligation to hire me. It's literally my purpose in life to try to help people who are suffering. So don't be shy. You can put some time on my calendar by visiting soberlifeschool.com, and I would be happy to talk with you, man or woman. I realize a lot of my marketing is aimed at women, but honestly, I'm happy to support the men too. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend or let me know on social media, and I will do more of these in the future. Thank you for spending some time with me. Thank you for supporting the podcast. And just know I am sending you all the love and peace that you can handle. One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.